Hey y'all, we finna have Pete Taylor hang out with us. Perfect. Pete. Good to see you, man.
See you.
Right on in, bro. You don't mind when we Facebook Live?
No, it's all
Cool. I meant to ask you that beforehand. Actually, kind of late, man. My bad. So I'm kind of rushing into things.
Cool.
Tell me, I want to start off just with a little bio on you. That's cool.
Sure, definitely.
Much as you want to divulge, man. Just really on. Oh, nothing. This is what I need to ask. Titles.
Yeah.
What do you want me? How do you want me to introduce you?
Oh, like in terms of the organization?
Yeah. If you want.
I'm just a member. We're still assigned in.
All right, and then I got you for two organizations, like Socialist Alternative and the Labor Coalition.
Yeah, definitely part of the Alachua Labor Coalition.
Okay. So is that cool?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
talk about.
cool.
But a lot of those efforts are intertwined. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So what do I refer to you as? Just a member?
Yeah, just a member.
That's fine.
Member,
That's fine,
activist, whatever, that sort of thing.
Cool. I got you, bro. And we're actually gonna get started pretty quick, in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Awesome.
So hate to kind of just thrust you right in there, man. But
Yeah, that's all good.
Kind of. You got anywhere you want to start in particular?
No, I mean, I guess I was curious. Where do you
Well,
want to start?
I was gonna start first with First, I wanted to start with both of the organizations.
Sure.
And I want to, just kind of distinguish
what
the
they
difference.
do and,
Exactly.
Sure.
Then, I guess I was gonna say your affiliation with both of them. That we can do that in introduction, and then kind of how you got involved in them, and then we can go straight to the issues after that.
Awesome.
That cool?
Yeah, definitely.
Got you, bro. And actually, like I said, man, we're starting a little. I usually start like at the top of the hour.
Cool.
So I mean, we'll probably go about 40 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And I'll play songs in between but I feel like we might have a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah,
so it might be more talking.
I got plenty of stuff to talk about, but I also figured I can cut it short. Whatever.
No, that's cool.
However it flows together.
So we'll we can ride out, bro.
Cool.
Like I said, okay, cool. And I'll just call you a member of both of those. And then Cool. That's it. I think we got it, bro.
Not anybody special. A member who likes to talk about stuff. You know?
Right. That's what's up, bro. All right, let's do it. Still rapping. I didn't realize that. All right, let's see what else we got, man.
Yeah, and if there's like stuff you have specific questions on or anything you'd like to chat about, I mean,
okay,
I got stuff, but I'm willing to talk about whatever you.
Okay, well this is what we could do. We'll do my questions and stuff, but if you got some need to know, not even need to know, but stuff that you really want to get to, let's get to it. Cool. You know what I mean? We can, Cool. I usually get to a point where I kind of give the whole floor to the guests anyway, to kind of pretty much. That way I make sure we can cover everything that you want to cover, man. The biggest thing is to accomplish.
Yeah, and you just cut me off, because I will talk. So you just cut me
off. That's actually my dream.
I get excited, I'll start talking,
hey,
if I start rambling,
that's the best.
You can cut it.
I got you, bro. All right. Now we'll be ready in about 20 seconds, man. Wait for this guy to start rapping.
Cool.
And that mic should be pretty good. Yeah. You're good, bro. All right. Let's do it. Yo, welcome back, y'all. Gainesville 352. What's going on, man? It's Jerry Jerkins right here on WBT 90.1 FM The Beat, right here on the Jerry Jerkins Show, man. And yo, man, I'm honored, man. Got a real treat for y'all today, man. Got the big homie, man, a good friend, man. Mr. Pete Taylor. Pete Taylor, is that cool for me to call you that?
That's good, yeah.
All right, cool. Pete Taylor of Socialist Alternative and the Alachua County Labor Union. Yo, man, I'm telling y'all, man, all employees of anywhere right now, this is the show to watch today, man. There's going to be a whole lot of good, need-to-know information, man. So y'all, make sure y'all paying attention. So, first, let me welcome you in, man, real quick, man. So, before I get to rambling on, because I'm a rambler too.
I will just talk, so yeah, you
cool. So first, man, Pete, for the people that don't know you, man, can I get like a quick little bio of, are you from around here?
Yeah, I mean, so like I moved around a lot as a kid, but I ended up in Gainesville after grad school.
Nice.
And lived here for like 16 years, worked a whole bunch, been involved in a lot of different stuff, and now work as an acupuncturist and do a lot of work as an activist here in
I
Texas.
knew that. I knew that. I knew you was an acupuncturist. I don't know how I knew that. But, all right. Okay. So, how'd you start getting into social work, man?
Yeah, totally. So, I've been, my heart's sort of been with labor for a long time.
Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, I was a Teamster back when I worked at UPS.
Okay.
And stuff, so, you know, I've been definitely, you know, my heart's been with labor organizing and things like that for a long time. And I've been a socialist in theory and in practice for probably, you know, well, at least 10, 15 years, like actively like aware of that, aware what that means.
Understood.
But like, I guess more recently, I finally, like my job and everything finally gave me enough time that I could actually like be more involved like on it as an activist, like getting out and talking to people more than just like believing it, actually, you know, trying to get out and talk to people about it and do stuff about it.
Right. Well, real quick, just, I don't want to get too far into the show yet, but I just want to touch on something you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Now you said you've been you know, constantly like a socialist for you said about 15 years.
Something like that.
Real quick, man, just for the people out there who don't exactly know the definition of socialist, because I mean, it could be a dirty word sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So can you clarify that for us, please, man?
Totally. Actually, I figured we would talk about that a little bit because it's one of those like classic questions, right?
Right.
We got to think. Like, we're trained to hear socialist and we think, oh, these totalitarian regimes like Stalinism in the USSR or Maoism throughout China, and we think, you know, okay, well, that's horrible. Nobody would want to live like that.
Right.
And so in some ways, we're actually working to reclaim that word.
Then your grandma got Social Security, though.
Yeah. Totally, yeah, exactly. So,
I'm sorry, grandma. Go ahead.
Right. So like, the idea of socialism, the way we talk about it, like we already kind of live in what we at least hope is a political democracy, right? We think that we have a voice in our government. And there are things that we should definitely work to make more common people actually have a more, a much louder voice.
Electoral college.
Sure, that sort of thing.
I feel you.
But what we realize, or what we believe, is that for economically, we actually don't have a democracy.
Right.
Economically, it's run by the power elites. There, you know, what's the one of the latest statistics? Like 100 people in the world, 100 billionaires own more wealth than 50% of the rest of the world's population. It's like 100 people versus billions of people, and so we feel like that is not just. It's just straight up unethical. And so what we're trying to look at doing is like, how do we turn our economic systems back over to working people's control, back over to where people actually have a say in their workplace day to day, a say in how the economies of scale are run, so that like we can plan economies that actually give us all good paying jobs, all have housing, all have health care, all have free college tuition all the way through.
Wow. And that all comes from community effort.
I think so, absolutely. That is. I'm sorry. Like I said, I will just ramble.
Hey,
so you cut me off.
Do your thing.
But for sure, I mean, Socialist Alternative and Alachua Labor Coalition and most of the like hard socialists on the left believe that like it all begins with organizing people at local community levels.
Absolutely.
Like we have to be integrated and like find out what does the community need? What do we actually need to fight for? How can we stand in solidarity with each other, especially for like the marginalized, the vulnerable? I got stuff here we talk about like we're specific efforts.
We'll definitely get to it.
Like, how do we work together on that?
Cool. We're definitely gonna get to it. Let's first, for the people out there, Socialist Alternative and Alachua County Labor Union.
Yeah.
They both do a lot of the same kind of work. Can you give us like the functions of each organization, a little history on them if you could?
Absolutely. So Alachua County Labor Coalition has actually existed for a lot longer than Socialist Alternative has here in town. It's really the heart of labor organizing here in Gainesville and Alachua County more broadly. What it does is it works with unions, with individual members, but also with a lot of like local organizations that deal with labor, and we work on like trying to get places unionized or try to fight for increased wages. Lots of projects that have been involved in like reclaiming wage theft from employers to employees, things like that. So like it's in some ways sort of the heart and soul of what labor organizing in Gainesville.
Cool.
And there's some real specific efforts we got going on right now that I think are exciting.
Awesome. I kind of read a little. Some of them I'm sure the people would love to hear about. So what about Socialist Alternative?
Mm-hmm. So Socialist Alternative is a national, and then we're in solidarity with international organizations that are working toward advancing ideas of democratic control of the economy and what we call socialism more broadly, both at local, community, regional, national, and international levels. It's a way we believe that every movement that comes about where people are in the streets and fighting for justice, fighting for rights, fighting for, to be heard, every one of those movements can be a step forward in really changing the foundational structures of the way our economy and political systems work. But it doesn't happen just automatically. We have to work to organize together, to learn lessons from history of what has worked and what hasn't worked, to try to find what are the voices that we haven't heard, what are the voices that are telling us things that matter about our understanding of the world, so we can actually integrate those and be one, it's a question of justice, but two, it's just a question of tactical efficiency.
Right.
People have learned things on the ground from organizing that we may not know if we don't work together nationally and internationally.
Wow. Well, hey, okay, so let's get into some of the efforts that you guys have been doing recently. I want to start with 1 year is enough. Now I know this is 1 year enough. Let me read that. The socialist response to resisting the Trump agenda.
Yeah.
I know that was held last week on the 15th, if I'm not mistaken, right? But I still want to talk about it a little bit, just to kind of bring the people up to speed and, what the whole event was about and what you guys covered and what have you.
Definitely. So it was an exciting event. We, as Socialist Alternative, we worked closely with the Civic Media Center. Mama's Club actually helped us out too, which is awesome.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Shout out to this fan. I'm supposed to have her in this week, man. So hopefully that works.
Amazing. She has my heart. But,
awesome.
And so, yeah, and then we worked with the Industrial Workers of the World and the Democratic Socialists of America, all to kind of come together as different perspectives, different sort of leftist perspectives on socialism.
Okay.
And we got together to talk about, what does it really mean to mount a socialist response to Trump? Because we have, what we believe, and this is sort of the perspective from Socialist Alternative, is that for better or worse, both parties right now are sort of bought and sold by corporate interests.
Absolutely.
As much as I'm not pretending they're identical, Democrats definitely have better policies than Republicans, but at the end of the day, they're still beholden to corporate interests far more than they are to you and me.
Absolutely. What's the name? It slips me right now. What's the name of the new law with the campaign contributions as an entity for a corporation? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the whole Glass-Steagall thing.
Yeah. So you're definitely right, absolutely right about that, man. All right. So at the 1 year enough, I mean, did you guys come to any solutions or anything that the community could help further the cause? Or?
Yeah, definitely. And some of those we'll talk about, as parts of what ACLC's got going on, Alachua County Level Coalition's got going on. But some of the things that we agreed on for sure is that it really does start, like we were just talking about a minute ago. It really does start locally. How do we work together to understand what needs we have on the ground for local communities right now, and how do we turn those into movements? Because historically, what happens and things actually make long-term national and international policy changes start as small movements, right? Wow. These are things that affect a small number of people, but get to the hearts of many other people, right? Like people hear about it and say, "Oh, that's something that I can see how that would matter to me too if I were there. That tugs at my heartstrings. How do I get involved?" Right. And so that's in some ways what we try to do start with working on local initiatives is work in ways that we can use those as not just lessons for other people to see, but also ways to bring hearts and minds from around the world to see what stuff we're working on here. Because I have comrades in Germany and Japan and stuff that saw when we went out and stood up to Spencer, right? Nice. And they were it's been written up in newspapers for the CWI, the Committee for Workers International, that Socialist Alternatives is a branch of, that was talking about, that was really behind it, because of course anti-fascism is a big part of being a socialist, right? And so what we try to do is when we have events like that, when we have things that really draw our local communities together, what kind of lessons do they show and teach and show us more broadly?
That just reminds me of Ashley Page.
Oh, yeah.
They went over to St. Augustine with Reverend Ron Rawls the other night, and she was telling me that one of the most effective tactics that they had was they had the festival lights, what they planned to do the protest during that time, but what was most effective was the people that didn't even know about the issue, and then they'd have little templates and little papers to explain. And then once then it resonates. Yeah. So like you said, man, it's just a lot of times it's just organizing. That just made me think about that when you were saying that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Ashley's wonderful. Just shout out.
Oh, awesome. Another one I gotta get in here really soon, man. I talked to her yesterday about that. All right. Okay. So I did ask you what we could do to further. Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk.
All right. And will there be any more events like the No Nazi? I mean, not the No Nazi. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like the 1 year is enough.
Yeah. So we would like to put on another one of those. We need to coordinate with some of the other groups. Good. But we got the next major thing we have coming up is an open meeting happening on Saturday the 12th. I'm sorry, not Saturday. 12/2, the first Saturday in December.
Okay.
Yeah, we got an open meeting. We do one about once a month or around there, which is open just for anybody to come in. It's start asking questions of what is socialism? Why would we need a socialist movement? Why would we want one in Gainesville? What are the things we're working on?
Awesome. But we'll definitely, before you get out of here, we'll definitely shout that out again and definitely get the people access to all things that you guys are doing, so they can definitely be abreast of everything, man. All right. If you don't mind, I want to talk a little bit about No Nazis at the UF Coalition.
Yeah, for sure.
And how that got started and just what was its function, and obviously, I mean, now we kind of know with the whole Spencer, but why you got started in and all that, man.
Yeah,
if
sure.
that was okay.
Absolutely. So, socialists broadly have a long history of fighting fascists. I mean,
Absolutely.
They're ideologically absolutely divergent. In terms of like socialists believe in the best world possible for everybody, and we're trying to fight for egalitarianism and equality and solidarity. And fascists literally believe that there are some people that are better than other people and should literally exterminate other people who don't fit into their worldview. And so these are diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
How we got involved in No Nazis at UF. There with student leadership, largely with like the Dream Defenders and some of the students.
Shout out to
Chad. Chad's amazing.
Yeah.
He's an incredible leader.
Good guy.
Yeah. That they definitely took the helm on a lot of that. But we ended up getting involved. There was a coalition effort from a lot of the leftist groups in town. So
Okay.
let's see, there were what. Let's see.
Indivisible.
Yeah, Indivisible was
there.
involved. Women's March, National Women's Liberation, Gates of Lenny Fascist Committee was involved. DSA and YDSA were out there. IWW, Socialist Alternative, Guerrilla Medics, all sorts of people were involved in that effort. And what we did is we tried to come together and find out, what things could we do on the ground? What kind of flyering could we do to get more student involvement? What kind of how could we draw more people in? How could we respond to criticisms of being involved? Because there was actually a pretty big push to say, don't go out,
Absolutely.
don't do anything, don't fight back.
There was.
And
real quick, I mean, I know this wasn't what you really came to talk about, but can you just touch on that real quick? Just complacency and how that can rear its ugly head, man, and the definite negatives about that, man.
Yeah, for sure. So the problem with that kind of complacency and with that kind of let's step back and not do anything, and if we ignore it, it'll go away attitude.
Right.
One, it has no historical reference, right?
That
never ever worked. I mean, let's look at fascist Italy. Let's look at Germany. Like these things, these movements, you can read excerpts from those newspapers when it was happening, and people, the moderates and centrists, are writing the same kind of editorials. Nobody should go out and pay attention to these people. Nobody should fight them, stand up to them, because they're so far right. They're such fringe. Nobody's going to listen. Nobody's going to do anything. Right. And look what happened. Right. That's not the case.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, though, and this is a critique that I have of what we think of as the broadly liberal establishment. I don't mean people whose hearts are in the right place fighting the good fight. I mean the type of politics that say don't go out and do anything, that we can fight things only through electoral reform, and we don't have to actually do any direct action. That kind of thinking is often, unfortunately, it's usually promulgated by people who are already in positions of power and won't be affected by what happens politically as much. These are people who already have economic and political power, and it might hurt them emotionally for fascists to take control, but they're not going to die.
Right.
And so the other people, most of the rest of us on the left realize this is a real existential threat to people in our community and to many of us as working class folks. And so we have to get out there and do something.
Man, I'm so glad you said that, bro. I'm so glad you said that, man. Yo, we're going to cut off right there.
Sure.
Just a few underwriting sponsors, commercials real quick. And we're going to come back and we're going to touch on everything you got over there, man. I want to unleash everything on the people, man. Hey, y'all don't know my man. I got the big homie, man, Pete Taylor, man, of the Socialist Alternative and the Alachua County Labor Coalition. Yo, I'm telling y'all, this guy has some real treats for y'all coming up next segment. And you're really going to want to tune in to hear this, man. Yo, I'm going to keep it locked right here. WMBT 90.1 FM Beat. Or right here on the Jake Jerkin Show, y'all. All right, let's get right to it. Cool.
Thanks, man.
Oh, awesome. Hey, I want to get into what you really want to, you know what I mean? That way.
Yeah, there's just some on the ground, real pragmatic things
you want to
get
start
involved with. The unpaid OPS workers, I think, is huge.
Okay, cool. Actually, all right. Let me just tell you what I got first.
Yeah,
actually, because that was next.
Okay, cool.
But I definitely don't want. I don't want to gloss over anything. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I definitely want to emphasize what we really want to emphasize. But all right. So I do have that next. And then I have, that. Actually, I had a question about that.
Yeah.
Irma and the NPI campus facility closure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you'll touch on all that. But what is the NPI campus facility?
Oh, so NPI was the Spencer event. National Policy.
National Policy Institute. Okay.
Yeah.
Facility closure. Okay. Yeah. So awesome. Cool. And then after that, I had us going into the organizing at Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Then the living wage of 15. I know people are gonna love to hear about that.
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
That's pretty awesome.
It should tie very nicely into the talking about unpaid workers, talking about union organization, and moving into 15 now. These are kind of
cool. And then candidates and electoral strategies and social alternatives.
Yeah, just stuff. That's we can talk about that or not. Like that one is exciting just because it shows what we were trying to do.
Okay.
And how that works. But if we get to it or not, that one's
okay.
Okay.
A little priority there. All right. Well, no problem, bro. Well, how you feel about that particular order?
Yeah, that was great.
Right to unpaid, and then unionizing at Santa Fe, and then 15 now.
Yeah,
that's cool to go that. Okay. Is there anything else I'm missing?
No, I wrote up some notes just on.
Okay.
I got a bunch of notes here on like general platform stuff from Socialist Alternative and like common questions on socialism and all that. But like just because mostly because I write up everything, so I have it like in my head when I talk, and then I can just jump in and do it.
All right. We're good then, man. I just definitely want to make sure that we get everything, man. Cool. Everything that you came to discuss, I want to get it out there.
Thanks for doing this, man. I'm really excited.
I wish I could have got you in here a while ago, man. I took like a month off. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. And then, man, another thing is, man, you're welcome back. Anytime you guys are doing something,
that'd be cool.
Oh, that'd be cool. Nice. I'd love to have you, bro. You ain't lying. You can ride out. So, hey, do your thing, bro. For real, man. All right. Let's see what we got. All right, so we'll got about 30 seconds. Actually, 30 seconds until I go on, and then I'll play a quick little song.
Sure.
And then get right back to it, man. And that actually that'll probably take us through the hour. If that's cool.
Yeah.
So that'll probably be another 15, 20 minutes of actual dialogue. Yo, welcome back, y'all. WBT 90.1 FM The Beat. It's your boy Jerk Jerkins holding down right here on the Jerk Jerkins Show, man. I ain't got my dog, man, my big homie Pete Taylor right here from the Socialist Alternative and the Alachua County Labor Union with some need-to-know information for all citizens of Alachua County, man. So don't go nowhere, y'all. Right now, man, I got Plastic and Kodak Black with Real Hitter. Don't go nowhere, man. Remember, y'all, we got plenty to talk about. All right, well, so, cool. Nice. 3 minutes. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick, man. Run around the corner. That's all I got time. I just thought about, I kind of want to hit you with like some opposition type questions.
Definitely.
That way you can, kill all the, what I mean, kind of like cross-examine type thing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I might have a few questions just on the kind of opposition you. Matter of fact, that's what we can do. I'll just ask you about that. Like, what kind of opposition do you guys face? And then and just like, cause a lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of common misconceptions, so I definitely want you to clear that up if you could. You know what I'm saying? And I don't have any in mind, but I'm sure we'll run across them. You know
sure. I mean, like, I do opposition to events or to socialism broadly as a project or like to labor stuff.
I mean, opposition is like, what I meant, like, just for many efforts that you guys are having.
Okay.
Like,
sure.
I'm trying to think of some good ones, man. Just. I don't know. I don't even know, man. Because it's not really like opposing. Not really like opposing. What's what I'm looking for? like legislation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really mean like that, but just in the middle of like if you ever had to debate somebody or something like that, just to kind of usually a lot of misconceptions and just views that are just built on untruths and lies. So if we ever run across those, man, I'll try to try to keep a gauge on what they are, but that I usually try to ask those kind of questions just for clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. So somebody out there's thinking them, so
exactly. But again, like I said, I ain't really got nothing in mind right now. And so we'll start with the OPS workers. OPS workers are like the hourly workers.
Right. It's I think technically it stands for other personnel services.
Right.
And we'll talk about this for sure. But like it's usually people who are classed. The university tries to class them as temporary, but a lot of those folks have been working there for decades.
Wow.
And so like they pay them less and don't contribute to Social Security. They give no benefits. And they do that because they've classed them as temporary.
And I noticed that on with the adjunct professors too.
Yeah.
A lot of the same practices.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that's a good example. Like back on that one, they showed a lot of the misconceptions of adjunct professors and people might believe this about them. Like that's what I really was getting at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But you kind of already got it covered, man. Yo, welcome back, man. Right here on WBT 90.1 FM The Beat. Yo, right now it's 15 minutes to 5, about 71 degrees outside. It's real nice out there too, man. Yo, I got the big homie, man, Pete Taylor of Socialist Alternative and Alachua County Labor Union in here hanging out with us, man. What's up, Pete?
Not much. Looking forward to it.
So, hey, man, we've been talking a whole lot about your efforts, but I kind of want to focus in on some of the more recent things that you've been doing, man, and especially locally, man. Actually, I want to thank you. I want to thank you first for all the work that you guys are doing. Let me get my music right, man.
No problem.
But so let's get started. Now there is a current issue right now on your campus with unpaid OPS workers.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit of history about that and what they're facing and what you guys are doing about it?
Sure, absolutely. So UF has a history of not treating their OPS. OPS means other personnel services. It has a history of not treating them particularly well, right? So these are often people who are classed as temporary workers, even though many of them have been working there for decades.
Right.
And the difficulty with that is when you class them as temporary workers, then they don't have to give it. They don't have no benefits. They don't have not even contributing to their Social Security.
So this is a business technical practice.
It's entirely a business.
Right. This isn't by coincidence. They're just forgetting these people.
Exactly. And so one of the difficulties with this is these are almost all hourly employees. Many of them are.
Right.
And so what happened? The most recent. There are plenty of issues historically, but like the two most recent things are that during Hurricane Irma, and then during the Richard Spencer National Policy Institute incidents, the university campus had to be closed, right? Or at least during the NPI thing, some parts had to be closed. That means that those people couldn't come into work.
Right.
This is not to any fault of their own. They didn't call in sick. They didn't decide they didn't want to work that day.
They didn't create Irma.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Irma came through and closed the campus. And so these people were not paid, though. They were not paid for the work they weren't able to come in and do. The issue with that, of course, is that this was already in the budget. Like, it's already in U.S. budget. It is allocated annually. Okay. So, like, this was already money that, as far as the university budget was concerned, had been spent on these employees.
And let me ask you a quick question. And that money, when it's not used, just goes straight to the university
to
keeps
pocket.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, exactly. And so the issue here is, one, it's just unjust across the board.
Right.
But most of the many OPS employees are the most marginalized. These are people living paycheck to paycheck. Often, like, if they don't get paid, they're looking at like not being able to make bills, maybe not being able to buy food.
Right.
These are people like for the most part who are the least able to weather missing a paycheck. And yet, because like the thing is, like Teams employees and most of the other faculty got paid for that. I mean, people who are on salary or people who were covered by different types of contracts across the board, they got paid.
And it was in the budget.
Right, totally. But the OPS workers didn't get paid.
Right, that's what I meant.
And and so like by not getting paid, that even though it was already in the budget, they are the ones who are least able to absorb that kind of loss. And it's just straight up unjust because it was already in the budget, and UF's just going to pocket that money. And so this, in some ways, for me, and I'm just going to derail just a little bit here. This dovetails right into the question of how much money was spent by UF administration and our state on allowing a white nationalist and a white supremacist to come and speak. Right? They spent $600,000 estimated to make sure that there were police force, to make sure that all this stuff, all this infrastructure was changed to have somebody come speak. It's about that much money that was not paid to OPS workers.
Wow.
And so you got to ask: is there an
Direct
intentional
correlation,
connection, or even if it's not intentional, are they just pocketing that money and not paying because they made such a bad fiscal decision?
Well,
what's going on?
You as a school, but as a business, it's in my best interest, it seems, to financially,
right,
to make this decision, and that seems like the most unjust thing in the world. Like, okay, we got Irma, we shut the campus down, so we actually will make money by not paying these people, and I think that's like normal. So how do we combat that?
Right, because the university is supposed to be for the public good.
Absolutely.
Right? So why are they?
It's a public school.
Right. So why are they holding on to money?
Absolutely.
Because not only is it for the public good, but that money was supposed to go to these people anyway.
Right.
And like even just as a business, even if they were just a for-profit institution, you pay your employees to make sure they keep coming back. If there's not money in the economy for them to spend, then what happens?
Right.
So yeah.
So, I mean, what is there anything to be done about this?
Yes, definitely. So, Alachua County Labor Coalition is fighting actively on this. There are petitions. There's some online. I don't have the specific link, but if you go to Alachua County Labor Coalition on Facebook, you can find it for sure.
Okay.
And there are petitions to be signed and sent to the UF administration. They are lobbying actively.
Nice.
We have people who are going in their offices, badgering them every day, like, this is not acceptable.
Wow.
You got to get people paid.
Nice. Awesome, man. So, not just UF. Santa Fe has their own little issues over there too,
absolutely, right? And I don't mean to pick on
not to be done, not to be outdone.
Right. And I don't mean to pick on our educational institutions.
Right.
UF does a lot of good stuff, and Santa Fe does a lot of good stuff. And a lot of people I know and care about work there. My wife works at UF. Like these are good institutions.
Right.
I believe in a lot of what they do. But by being such big employers in the town, what they do affects a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes we have to fight them where they are, not because we don't believe in their mission, but because we think the way they're doing some stuff.
Right. They got to tweak some stuff over there.
Right. And so we're working right now on organizing or unionizing over at Santa Fe.
Okay.
The Alachua County Labor Coalition is definitely heading up this effort, but it's being, I don't know, heading up is probably the wrong way to say it because they are acting as sort of the infrastructure behind it. It's really an initiative being driven by the adjuncts already there, the people who are being affected by it. In some ways, this is the way we work, both as Socialist Alternative and Alachua County Labor Coalition. We try to listen for where do people have a need. We try to listen. Who's saying they're being hurt, and then find out how can we help with that kind
Let's talk about you did mention it, the adjunct professors.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what they're going through over there a little bit.
Definitely. So adjuncts right now at Santa Fe their pay is capped at $25K a year. Now they work full-time jobs. I mean, the college says that they work about 27.5 hours, but that is just like in-class time. That's not grading. That's not lesson prep. Wow. That's not any of that, right? And so they're saying that somehow this $25K is enough to survive on. And these are people with master's degrees, PhDs. These are people who are educated at the same level as their tenured colleagues.
Wow.
And so what the difficulty there is that that's not even a living wage in Gainesville.
No, it's
32K is the minimum living wage for people to survive in Gainesville. Per the 2007 calculation, based on MIT's calculation, and even that is probably low now because we're 10 years out.
Right.
But 25K is simply not enough to live on. But the difficulty is that Santa Fe's administration has consistently, historically, used public money to fight unionization, to stop their employees from trying to unionize, to fight for better wages. And so what we're trying to do, there's been a push to get the Santa Fe president to sign an agreement to say he will not try to fight unionization efforts this time, so that then we can go ahead and move forward with getting folks unionized, so that then we can then move the next step forward to try to fight for basically a living wage over there.
How do we help support this cause here?
There are meetings regularly. We fly over there. There are petitions to be signed.
Okay.
There are often meetings where we just need bodies there to say, hey, look, there are enough people in this community that care about this, and we need it to happen.
Cool.
One reason we've started there is because it's not just adjuncts. There are people across the board at Santa Fe who need to be unionized. Workers across the board there need to be unionized, but adjuncts is a real clear-cut case if we can say, look, that's not okay. These people are, and so.
I feel you, bro. So, laborcoalition.org is the national website. But for the Alachua County Labor Coalition, more specified locally, Is that a good
It
site?
actually is. I don't know how we did it, but ACLC managed to get
Oh, really?
laborcoalition.org. So
cool.
it is like,
I thought that was the national.
I know it should.
So
it seems like
we can definitely keep up with all the efforts there as well as the Facebook page, right?
Definitely.
Cool. All right. And real quick before we got about 6 minutes.
Sure.
I want to talk about living wage and 15 now.
Definitely. So, living wage is something that Socialist Alternative is really behind. That's something we believe in. That people should, if people are working, they should be able to support themselves.
Well, let me ask you something. I read this recently. Is it true that in most states, working 40 hours minimum wage, you can't afford like a 2-bedroom apartment? And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, real purchasing outside of earnings having actually gone down in terms of, but purchasing power has just fallen off.
Wow.
I mean, the ability for somebody to work 40 hours at minimum wage, they can't. The idea of the American dream of being able to buy a house and all that, no, people can barely afford to have an apartment. Like,
wow.
And so certainly when we're talking about living wage, we're talking about like if somebody's out working. Why can't they support themselves? Why shouldn't they support a family? I mean, you're out there doing stuff every day. Why shouldn't you go live?
History, that's it. All right, and 15 now.
15 now. So 15 now is an endeavor put forward by in Seattle. It started in Seattle and has now moved nationwide.
Seattle's a $15 town, right?
It is now.
San Francisco too.
Right. So Seattle became a $15 city based on this endeavor.
Nice.
So Shah Sawant is the first open socialist elected in a city council in decades.
Okay, I saw that. Really?
Right.
Cool.
And so and she's a Socialist Alternative member, and she so part of her major electoral campaign for when she was trying to get elected was this 15 Now initiative to try to say we're fighting for $15 an hour minimum wage citywide to try to force, because one, if wages go up for everybody's quality of living goes up, and it also stimulates the economy. Studies show historically over and over that if people have buying power, it helps the economy overall.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you stick all the money in rich folks' hands and nobody else has any, you can't buy anything.
No.
And so pushing this up, it was a big plank of her campaign. But in it was a big part of her getting elected, and so Socialist Alternative, in conjunction with a number of other groups, have tried to take this campaign nationwide to move for a $15 an hour minimum wage. That wage has been calculated as more or less an effective living wage for where we are right now. We're going to have to fight for more later, of course, because inflation always kicks it up. But where we are right now, if you could earn that, you could at least survive.
Yeah, the $15 is about $30,000 a year.
Right, exactly.
All right, and real quick, if you want to touch on candidates and electoral strategies of socialist alternative,
definitely,
if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about this just for a second. And there are a number of positions on this in the broad left, right? But electoral politics is something that Socialist Alternative does try to do, not as an end in itself. We don't believe electing any one person is going to make a difference. It's all of us together as a mass that actually will make a difference.
Yes, sir.
But sometimes pushing forward a particular person can give a platform so that people will hear about issues they may not have heard of.
Like in Seattle.
Right. And most recently here, Ginger Jensen is a fantastic example of this in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Ginger Jensen in Minneapolis, because she was fighting establishment powers, the establishment of both Republicans and Democrats to get elected as a socialist. She, as a major plank of her campaign, ran on 15 Now also. They caved before she could get elected. They took it in, and the whole city passed it because they didn't want to elect her. They were so afraid of having a socialist on there that they just caved, gave 15 hours citywide, and so her campaign, for as far as we're concerned, was a success before the election.
Absolutely.
Day. Because
Absolutely.
Really what we're trying to do is get gains for people day to day on the ground, real concrete wins for people.
And it's really changing the culture as well, man.
Absolutely.
Well, Pete, hey, we're running out of time, man. I definitely want to. Is there anything that we didn't touch on, man?
I don't think so. You can definitely look up Gainesville Socialist Alternative on Facebook and Alachua County Labor Coalition at laborcoalition.org or on Facebook. And so those are there. And we are having our next open meeting on December 2nd at 7 o'clock.
December 2nd, 7 o'clock, City Media Center?
No, it will be at, it'll either be at the Alachua County Labor Coalition office or at the Civic Media Center. I will put up details.
All that information is going to be on Facebook. Awesome, man. Pete, I really appreciate you coming by, man.
Thank you so much.
I feel like we got so much more to talk about even, man. But, hey, anytime you guys are doing anything, man, I'd love for you to come by and tell us all about it, man. And again, I want to thank you on behalf of the community, man, for all the work that you guys are doing, for making the word socialism not such a bad word. It's just crazy. I was joking about it earlier, you know what I mean? But it's crazy that they have methodically made that into something that we should be afraid of.
Yeah.
when like I said earlier, when everybody's grandma is on Social Security,
exactly.
which is a socialist program.
It is.
You know what I mean? So I mean, come on, man. We gotta kind of educate ourselves on that, man, and just kind of clear through all the murky BS, you know. Wait a minute, man. Hey, thanks again for coming in, bro. And I appreciate having you, man. I want to thank you just for coming in, man.
No,
hey, y'all don't go nowhere, man. Keep it locked right here, WBT 90.1 from the beat. It's Jerry Jerkins, man. Got the big homie Pete Taylor of the Socialist Alternative Alachua County Labor Coalition. And yo, man, I'm gonna get up out of here, man. Don't go nowhere, y'all. Keep it locked right here. Pete, I wish we would have had more time, man.
Oh, man,
Turn that off.